Greetings. Greetings. Welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. On Conversation with Tony Mobley today, I am having a conversation with Mr. C.J. Covell, businessman and technologist. This is episode 11 of 2024. Conversations with Tony Mobley is back. We are back. Yes, we are back. We want to thank everyone for being a part of this journey. And so we want to All right, apologies. I'm getting sound from another device. Apologies. As I was saying, we are back and we are powered by Mimo Live. We also want to thank everyone for being a part of the old infrastructure. And I should say, we have had several different infrastructures. And so we are now being powered by Mimo Live, and we're very excited about what we are being able to do with Mimo Live. I want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley for all of your hard work. You can go to conversationwithTonyMobley.com, and there you can watch this conversation and watch past conversations that we've had. We also have the opportunity to participate in this conversation by asking questions. You can ask questions courtesy of Alex Lindsay and 090 in the Mukana system. It is a system where you can ask questions. Not only can you ask questions, those questions can be voted up and down. That's right. You can vote on the question or have others participate in enriching this conversation. And so now we are about to get started, and we're first going to ask the very first question of CJ. First, we want to say welcome to Conversations with Tony Mobley, and we want to say thank you so much for being here. And the very first question is, who is CJ Covell?
Who is CJ? That's a great question. A question I think we're all still trying to figure out now. No, so I'm a very curious guy. I have a real thirst for knowledge and how really how you can explore so much of the world thanks to the technology that's around us. We live in such a blessed time to be surrounded in the ability. I'm almost choking up thinking about it, but the ability to go to another country where you've never been, you don't know the language, you don't know the people, you don't know the customs. You can, without needing to hire a guide, without needing to go to a special school, you can in your own home learn a little bit of the language, learn a little bit out of the customs so that you can be respectful and make an attempt. You can plan the trip, learn how to get around, get advice, speak to others all around the world. And it's all because we live in some of the most connected times that we've ever been in. And so when I think back to what makes me me is that I have been really blessed to grow up in the world and in the time that we live in, and for whatever reason have a real knack for figuring all that stuff out and playing with it. And I love to help others. And I find that when I can help create tools and I can put systems in people's hands that lets them do things that they didn't think was possible, or make somebody's job easier than it ever was before, or enable my grandparents who, my happy birthday to my pop-up, he turned 81 today, and we had a FaceTime call.
Wow. Happy
That's,
birthday, Dad.
yeah.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Dad.
birthday. No, not Dad, Pop-up.
Pop Pop.
Pop-pop's 81, and he's, but we were,
Pop Pop.
but think about that. We were on a FaceTime call the other night, talking from 500 miles away, like we were in the same room. It
That's amazing.
I haven't answered your question though. I realize now, and it's, I think the biggest thing for me, Tony, is that I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who's curious and who has been blessed with a great family. I met a great woman and married her, Melissa, my wife. She's excellent. And I get to wake up every day and go make stuff. at work and do something that I really love. And that's so who am I? I'm just lucky.
Well, we want to take this time to say to Melissa, thank you so much for turning that air conditioner on, and thank you so much for allowing CJ to participate in this conversation. Thank you so much,
She
Melissa.
she she
Thank you.
didn't even hesitate. She said, "Go hang out, go have fun." But it's funny you say that. Though. The air conditioning though is I built this room when we moved to Cincinnati. Um, I was really switched on by the ideas really that came out of Alex Lindsay in office hours. In that you have the ability to using Zoom connect with people in a almost latency free way, very low latency way, have a conversation like you've never been able to have before. And the reason that people don't like to talk over video chat, especially in business, is because they can't hear you, they can't see you. There's frame drops, the resolution isn't very great. So there's all these little, every one of those things is a little layer. It's a little layer in between me and you. And when we moved out here into Cincinnati from the suburbs of Philadelphia, near where I grew up, I said, I'm going to build a room in the basement, and that's going to be my room where I can connect with people. And I'm going to make it so that whether it's a conversation that we're having that's on a personal level, or if it's a conversation that I'm having on a business level, that I'm going to look and sound so good that at some point people are going to forget just a little bit for just a second. All the technology is going to melt away and we're just going to be connecting. We're just going to be having a conversation. And
Absolutely.
when I did that, I wanted to soundproof the room. So I said, okay, I'm gonna soundproof the room. I'm gonna put 6 inches of insulation, double dry with 2 layers of drywall, insulate the wall, put a gap in, build another wall, put insulation in that, put 2 layers of drywall on the other side. Let me tell you, it does a good job from a sound perspective. It also does a great job at a heat retention perspective. The sound doesn't get out, and neither does the heat. So at this time of
Yes.
year, when it's really nice outside, 70 degree, 75-degree days, 40-degree nights, you got the windows open all day, all night long, the air doesn't run. If I'm in here working all day like I was today, I left the office today, this room, from my regular job at about 6:00, and it was 80 degrees. And I
Wow.
thought to myself, man, I got in here this morning, it was 66. What did I do? But it creeps up on you. You don't realize it until you're like, man, I got to talk to Tony in an hour, 20 minutes from now. And I'm sweating. Like I've got to do something. So I did. I went upstairs. I said to Melissa, I said, hey, honey, I know it's like the fresh air is nice, but can we just for a couple hours, let's turn the AC on? And she's like, yeah, turn the AC on. I don't want to mess you up. But it made me think I've really got to just get one of those little R2D2 looking portable units to put in here, like just
Yes.
cool it
Yes,
off.
sir.
You run hot.
Fantastic. We have a question from Dr. Chris Clark of Tempe, Arizona. CJ, please contrast your life of working independently with working for a large organization.
Well, appreciate the question, Dr. Chris. I would say that I'm not totally independent. I've been very fortunate to have grown up in a family business. So my dad started the business that we're in, which is a manufacturing company. We make metal building products for roofs and walls and things like that. And it's a pretty exciting business actually, because there's a lot of nuance and a lot of really interesting ways that you can like a lot of interesting trails you can go down and learn every single day. I've been working for him full time now since about 2013, and
Okay.
I'm still learning every single day. I mean, I was the IT guy at 8, right? And we started the business when I was 4, so that gives you some perspective.
The
But
IT guy at 8. Okay.
yeah, I was showing. Yeah, you walk in and we had all Macs at the time. We were very strange to be in the 90s to have an office that was all Macintoshes. And he he said, "Hey, go show Ed how to restart that computer, would you?" And so I go in there and I'd be zapping the PRAM and doing all that, and, set up Apple Talk so they can go to the printers. But that was like my first job. I don't know, it was a job, but later looking back now, it's like, man, that's like a tier one service tech. Somebody's getting paid for that nowadays. But I am blessed though, even though we have a company that's got a we'll have by the end of 2025, we'll probably be at 350 to 400 employees. We have a little over 300 right now.
That's fantastic.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. It's a great place to work. It's a family run business, and we get to know the people that work for us. We get to treat people like people. We don't have to be governed by some big corporate policy. And that's to answer the question about, to contrast my experience with working for a very large corporation, is that we get to make decisions about people and treat people like people. It's not a number on a spreadsheet. It's not a decision uh, of ones and zeros. It's a decision of what makes the most sense. We get to govern our decisions every single day by what is the right thing to do. Even if it's not easy to do, what's the right thing to do? And it's really tough as any business grows. I can imagine they have the same challenges. It's very tough to keep that mentality when you have to start doing things that feel more like a big corporation. Because at
Mhm.
some point you have to follow the rules, follow the regulations. You need to be fair. You need to make sure that you're not opening yourself up to any sort of risk because you thought you were doing what made sense, but then there was, an I wasn't dotted or a T wasn't crossed, and you've been opened up to some sort of liability. That's a really challenging kind of row to hoe at that point. But we've been very blessed in that we are able to maintain that identity and maintain, the people part of the business. And yeah, it's a nice way to be. And I'm really lucky that I get to still work in that.
That sounds fantastic. Congratulations to your dad for creating that business opportunity for you and for you to be able to be a tech person in the business at a very young age.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So Dr. Clark is back again, and he says, CJ, I too grew up in Philly in the 50s and 60s. Got any Philadelphia stories?
I'll give a story. Sure. Go Birds, first of all. For better or for worse. Excuse me. So Philly stories. We grew up outside of Reading, Pennsylvania. So we were about an hour and a half from Philadelphia. But some of my best friends from high school, I was always friends with older kids growing up. So normally my friends were two classes ahead, was generally how it went. And friends of ours went to school in downtown, in Center City. And so I remember at 18 years old, I wanted to go hang out with my friends. So I went to the bus terminal and took the, Capitol Trailways, took the Beaver bus down to Philadelphia, and then walked through the city with, my little duffel bag, overnight bag, and go hung out with my friends. And we weren't ever big partiers or anything like that in high school. We were, in general, we were just a hardworking bunch because we were into media production and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
we would, in high school, we broadcast something like, I want to say about 80 events a year that we live streamed. And we did this, there wasn't YouTube live streaming at the time. It was like, Windows Media Server. And we were just we were streaming high school graduations at like 320p at this terribly low. And then as time went on and the technology improved, we got a TriCaster and we were able to start broadcasting. The YouTube broadcasting and the TriCaster happened after I had left, but the program kept going. And so, but the thing is, when you're working at the school and you're doing baseball and basketball and football and volleyball and swimming and every concert and every play and it's like wow, you don't have a lot of time to get into trouble. But we learned how to work. We learned how to show up on time, and we learned how to be a part of a team, and we learned how to uh, really work ethic more than an account. And I'm sorry, accountability is the other thing. I didn't do a very good job preparing for this, I guess, because I should have this in the slot. But accountability was
What's
huge.
the time frame? What's the time frame?
This is
What years?
2007 to 2010,
Wow, that's you're ahead of the curve. Yeah, that's
and
fantastic.
I did play by play for football games, and I remember I used to have the little I had my little MacBook or iBook or whatever it was in front of me, and at the time this website came out called Max Preps, and Max Preps would list statistics and all the names and numbers for all of the local high schools. So you would know not only the players that were on your team, but you knew the players on the other team. So I would spend 1 or 2 nights the week leading up to football season, uh, memorizing the numbers of the other team. And then I would go up into the booth, and I had a telex in one ear, and I had the little monitor in front of me. And that was where I first learned. This is the live picture, right? This is where I first learned how to talk and listen at the same time. I'm not as good as it as I used to be, but I remember we didn't have comms. Or like, comms was there was a mic in the truck that was just live, and so people would say I'd hear the graphics person. We didn't have anything. You just typed and clicked. We had to make a graphic go on the screen when there was a score or a quarter change. We would save a Photoshop file to a Windows XP machine, open up Photoshop, change the number in Photoshop, re-render it out to a PNG with an alpha channel, import it into the switcher, or into the software on the computer that the switcher would call on for the graphics pool, and they'd delete the graphic and forget the stinking quarter. And so I'd hear him in the truck, "Hey, what quarter is it again?" And then and the Bulldogs are up 21-7 in the third quarter. And this, he did it again. And they would go nuts, but we couldn't afford that many belt packs. So there was just a mic on in the truck. So I would just get a kick out of the guys in the truck hooting and hollering. But to get back to the Philly story, we did a variety show kind of thing where we were going to I was a heavy kid growing up. I started my senior year at 267 pounds, and we said that we were going to do a thing where I was going to lose weight on TV because Biggest Loser and all this stuff is going to come out. So we did this whole crazy opening sequence where I was eating candy and junk food and chips and everything like you would never supposed to eat. And then the guy that ran the TV crew, Matt Schaefer, he said, "All right, if you want to host this show, you got to get in shape." And we did. We drove down to Philadelphia on a Saturday, dressed me up in the Rocky garb, and we did the steps. And then that was like our big deal video that started off. But that was like my first Philly experience.
Wow.
I also remember just how you didn't realize because you were in it at the time how special the sports fans of Philadelphia are, because they're really hard. They're notorious for being harsh. But if you're from there, it's like a brotherhood, or it's like a family. It's like you just have this instant friendship and bond with all these people who you've never met before, and everyone's friends. And they are a little rough around the edges, but they're a good time.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And thank you, Dr. Clark, for asking your question. We have a question from Australia. It's from Zachary Sorensen, who is actually cutting our show this evening. And his question is CJ short for anything?
CJ's Craig Joseph. Yes. My dad is also Craig. But he's Craig Mitchell, and I'm Craig Joseph, although I have been called Craig Jr. enough times that I'll answer to it. But yeah, so it's always, but I've never been, I've only been Craig on legal papers and when I'm in trouble. And then every now and again, my little brother Nick, who he also moved out to Ohio from Pennsylvania to be part of the new factory that we're opening up here. He calls me Craig in front of other people to mess with him. Because people think my dad's coming around the corner, and then they get confused.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Zach, for that question. Zach is doing double duty, asking questions and participating. Um, let's talk about your education and training. Well, you already alluded to it in terms of being 8 years old or 4 years old, participating and working at the company. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So the thing is, I don't know where it came from. It's probably it has a lot to do with my dad, who has this attitude of just, you can figure it out. He has a figure it out factor, and that is just off the charts. And I remember I said to him, "Well, don't I need training to do this job?" When I wanted to come in and do I wanted to learn customer service, right? I wanted to enter orders into the computer system and answer phones, and like, I wanted to make money. He said, "Okay, if you want to get a job, here's what you got to do. Go down to the high school, get your worker's permit, and go into work. Here's the person that you need to put your interview in with. Give your resume to this person." I never did a resume before. Well, figure it out. And then after you interview, then you can come in. And then I said, "But I don't know the program." He says, "Well, I didn't know the program. I click every button and figure out what it does." And it was really that click every button and figure out what it does that is like the seed of the idea that is my entire life now. Because I've had that same cockeyed optimism with every computer program I've ever opened up. And I think I've been defeated once or twice, that like, you put me down over a weekend and I'm just going to beat on the thing 10 or 20 hours until I figure out how it works. And when you have this business that's growing at the same time as you're growing up, all of a sudden there's all these odd jobs to do. We don't have the money to have a graphic design department in the early days. We don't have the money to have a on-staff IT people. We don't have the money to have people to clean the toilets and empty the trash cans. We did that stuff at nighttime. Dad brought a Mac home, and with ClarisWorks on it. And I sat there and I watched him draw the catalog, right? For our very first catalog. The picture in the advertisement, you don't hire a photographer. The picture in the very first advertisement, I'm hiding behind the panel that's in the advertisement, holding it up because we didn't have a kickstand for it, right? So it's like, it's all of those early days foundational stuff that's the education, is the belief that the resources are there if you want them. If you ask enough questions, then you can go out and learn it. Whether it's learning it because you're just clicking all the buttons and figuring it out, you learn how to read forums, you learn where experts are and how to ask for help. It's amazing. It's amazing how many people will help you if you just ask. If you get to really smart people, they want to share. They don't want to hold back. And so when you start to ask them questions, how do I do this? How do I do that? All of a sudden, this whole world opens up. The other things that he
Absolutely.
taught me were suit up and show up are half the battle. You don't have to know anything to be on time. You don't have to be the best athlete on the field to have hustle, to hustle on and hustle off. And if you just go in there and be genuinely curious about that other person on the other side of that conversation, you're going to be amazed at where that leads you. And so I was very blessed to go to a great high school that had a tremendous academic program. I also have a photographic memory, so I never studied a day in my life, and people hate me for it. And I don't, sorry, I can't help it. When you're judged by Scantron memorization tests, um, and you read the book once and you remembered everything, you all of a sudden are passing. That actually is a challenge, though, later in life, because you have to learn how to have better work habits, because that ain't going to fly. That's not how the world works, is not just regurgitate information. But what it did allow me to do is it allowed me to spend time with that media production crew. I spent more hours in this truck learning what all the switchers did and learning about all the cameras. I spent more hours wrapping cables and building up stuff, tearing it down, and all the memorization in the world isn't going to make you wrap that cable right. It's not going to make you show up and learn to be accountable to other people. And so really it's even though, I went on to college in Chicago and I studied entertainment business and I thought that I wanted to get into that industry. I what I realized was I learned more, like looking back, I had good experiences from a traditional education perspective, but I've learned more through working with other people and from other people in a work setting, whether that was in a extracurricular in school or through, whatever jobs I've had since I was 13 years old. I've learned more from those other people than I think any traditional school could have ever taught, and just have been just around great people. So again, just really lucky.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious. You've talked so much about how the technology impacted you and how working with your dad and the company and really literally growing up with the company. Tell me about some things that you and the family did that were fun, that were not business related. Tell me about some of
So
that.
we did. We always had a lot of fun. No matter what, I mean, working or not working, when the there's 6 or 7 of us in a room, we're just always having a good time. It's like if you're not having a good time, you're doing something wrong. And we would do these trips when I was really little. Everybody would pile into the car and we'd drive down to the beach and we'd go, but my dad's brothers and sisters would go and all of their kids would go. So there's 25 or 30 cousins running around. And and I was the oldest. I was the Of the kids that were there, I was the oldest usually. And then a couple of my cousins were within a year. So there was like a group of 3, and then there's a 5-year gap, and then there's another group of 3, and then there's another little gap, and there's another group. So there was all these little like age clicks, and it was neat because you got to see everybody grow up. But also it was a lot of time when some of my other favorite memories with family are when my youngest sister, Chloe, who is 16 years younger than me, when she started getting into sports, and to see her, whether it was uh, to see her sing or to see her play a sport or to see her doing these extracurriculars. And um, I got to go to one of her softball tournaments, and it was just the coolest thing because it was like, man, I'm old enough to really remember when she was little, and then to see her grow up has been really great. But I'm the oldest of 7, so it's a big family.
Me too. I'm the oldest of 7 as well.
Oh wow.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Well, I'm sure our 7 is a lot older. A lot older. I do have my youngest brother is 16 years younger than I am, though.
Oh, no kidding.
So we have that in common. So, but I'm 66, so that tells you how young the baby is. So, thank you so much for sharing that. That was, thank you, thank you for sharing that. We have a question, from, really a comment from Laura Thompson. What a great program Claris Works was. My first to know.
The dog cow.
My first database.
Well, even to this day, I'm not sure if it started in Claris Works, but the company that now runs FileMaker is the Claris Corporation, or I think it's still a subsidiary of Apple. But yeah, you got to learn what a spreadsheet was, and here's what a Word document is. And I mean, the Mac came with, back in the OS 9 days, it came with really neat software. And one of my favorite parts about the new Mac OS that's out, Sierra, is that the one screensaver has the classic OS 7, OS 8, OS 9 icons on it, all of the
Mm.
Susan Care icons, and every now and again it'll cycle in and the dog cow will be on the screen, which was like the Claris logo. Matter of fact, you can still find the Claris logo, I think, in the print settings on Mac OS when you're trying to see if is this going to be landscape or portrait. It still shows up. I can't get to it quick enough, but yeah. And then it turned into AppleWorks, and ClarisWorks, then I think it was AppleWorks 6 all of a sudden out of nowhere. And then you start it up and it's like, do you want a spreadsheet? Do you want a thing? And I remembered how foreign it was to go to a Windows computer at school. And it's like everything was backwards. And I felt like I still figured it out after a couple of years, but it's even to this day, I'm still faster than most people when I'm using a Windows PC, but I feel like I'm writing with my left hand as a right-handed person. Like I just feel like feels weird.
We didn't say that we were going to talk about religion tonight, CJ.
But but we run both. I mean, I work with a really great team that supports the all the different devices and infrastructure that runs the business. And we have Macs, we have PCs, we have Androids, we have iPhones, we have the industrial stuff that some of it only talks in CSV files with a stick drive, and some of them do much more complicated things than that. So you see the whole gamut. I really got lucky to I've always had a passion for on the technology side, and our COO who retired in the last year, one of the things that he oversaw was the IT department. And I have a really, really great IT manager that works with me there. John is so smart, and he's so passionate about what he does, and he really thinks critically, not just about the technological implications, but also how it makes sense for the business. Because we're always trying to how do I design a solution that's going to support a business process. I know that I've missed the boat if I'm trying to shoehorn a business process into what a piece of technology wants to do. I've missed the mark. It's like I need to support what they're doing. If I'm not making their lives easier, then we're not doing our jobs. And we have a tremendous amount of great conversations all the time about that. And so I get to work with him every day on stuff, and we've really been able to, I think, through that back and forth, get a lot of initiatives forward. And things are rapidly changing in the world, but we always feel like we're very comfortably, we have exactly what we need, and we're bringing stuff on in a very measured way while still keeping it exciting, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. The next question is, what do people need to know about you that they don't know?
What do people need to know about me that they don't know? Well, I'm on the Wall of Flame and Quaker Steak and Lube. No, if you eat the 15 of those chicken wings that they have to give you they have to give you a waiver to sign before they'll serve them to you, they put your name up on the wall. I love to play. I don't know. I could be playing golf, playing piano, playing, just goofing around. I'm always trying to have a good time. I can always see the lighter side of something, no matter how stressful the situation is, or no matter how otherwise grim something might seem or stressful. I think that humor is the number one way to put people at ease, to diffuse something. And so you'll always find me joking around. My wife says I play too much, but that's okay. I hurt my knee at some point. There was this pooch parade. We did this fundraiser for the SPCA with a good customer of ours. And it wasn't anything massive. I think, it's not like we were bringing in millions and millions of dollars, but it's a small rural community. It's an old, it's part of coal country in Pennsylvania. So it's not like it's a super ritzy area, but we bring those people in. And the dog got loose. Our dog got loose. This is a Newfoundland, 120, 130 pounds. And I'm like, oh my gosh, one of our customers' dogs is going to get hurt because our dog went after him. This is not an aggressive dog, but it's just, I can see just because of the size of her that it was going to make people uneasy. So I run after this dog. I managed to get the dog, but I kind of dove after her because she started to run fast, and I went down on this concrete floor on my knee. I chipped a piece of my kneecap, and it was floating around
Oh.
in there. And but everybody was okay. We laughed, and I had to get the knee operated on to get the little bone fragment out. And as we're going into surgery, the doctor's like, "Okay, so it's the right knee that we're working on today." And he was standing facing me at the end of the bed, and I was already on some sort of anesthetic, like I was a little loopy on whatever they had me on in there. And I was like, "Yeah, my right." Like I couldn't even in that situation. I was like, "Yeah, my right, not yours, doc. It's your left." He's like, "Can't help it." So yeah, I'm always looking for a laugh.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Oh. Our next question is how are you volunteering in the office hours community? What are the things that you're doing in office hours?
So the biggest thing that I do at office hours is I'm part of the Friday show. So I host on Fridays, and I also will be part of that council that meets. So we have a council that meets that plans the Friday shows. Um, and then also, if the schedule lines up, I try to I was a part of the setup at NAB this year, which was really nice to volunteer in person there. And the big reason I do that is because I think that the mission behind having a conversation where no one's left out is really important, and it really resonates with me on a personal level, but also it's a community that pushes me out of my comfort zone in ways that I don't get on a daily basis. Because I have plenty of situations that I get into where I have to think, or I have to be creative to get out of a spot. But if all I ever do is live in that live in that industry that I'm in, and I never talk to anybody outside of it, and I'm never challenged, and I'm never pushed to learn new things, then I lose that muscle. And so for me, for office hours, selfishly, it's a way for me to practice speaking. It's a way for me to practice getting ideas communicated in a concise way, which I'm doing a tremendously poor job of today.
No,
Um,
you're not. You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
and um, and it also helps me with getting this setup tuned and humming, that I can do things very naturally without any pauses. Because when I can be in a meeting without physically being there, I love to meet people in person. Don't get me wrong. I do not think that this is a full cloth replacement for it. However, the longer that time goes on, it feels like the less and less time I have to have those accidental happenstance meetings. Um, the less people that I get to interact with without a lot of planning and a lot of preparation. And I think that I can get in front of more people a lot faster if I can get in front of them via Zoom. And so I have this vision that someday I'm going to be able to get in front of people with this setup, talking over Zoom, making whatever my presentation is, or making my idea, or just having a conversation. And I'm going to be able to plant a lot more seeds because I don't have to leave this room. I don't have to leave, whether it's here or whether if I build something similar at my office, I can be in 5 different countries or 3 different states or what have you without having to leave right here. So making this setup just happen automatically, almost as if it were muscle memory, uh, it's really powerful. And Alex has called it it's like the dojo. It's a place where you can come in every day. It's not a big time commitment. But whatever days you want to come in, you can switch it on, get your setup going. You have people who are going to tell you if there's ways that you can improve. And in a very I think he calls it ruthless compassion, which is one of my favorites. Um,
Yes,
but
mine
ruthless
too.
compassion, people tell me when I'm out of line, from a lighting perspective or from a sound perspective, not because they're doing it in a mean-spirited way, but because they want to tell me because nobody else will. And they also know that other people might not know what to tell you.
Right.
And so I get a lot out of it in that way, in being a part of it. And I really, one of the other things that I do is just, I always try to figure out, how do I put us in the best position to grow? And how do I put us in how do I put the best face on the organization for when I'm there, that makes people want to watch and makes people want to come back and gets people interested and want to be a part of it? Because there's a community of individuals who would otherwise have never met, never interacted. But getting to work with them exposes me to all of their collective life experience. I would have never met these people. And matter of fact, when we moved to Cincinnati, one of the things that I said right away to Melissa when we moved here is, said, we need to find a couple organizations that we can volunteer. Find stuff that we care about, whether it's the biggest one that we've been working with is the Cincinnati Animal Cares to rescue dogs. But so we've done like a foster for a day where you take them out so that they can not be in the shelter all the time. It helps their temperament when people come in for adoptions and things like that. What we're going to get out of it is, we're going to meet people who care about the things that we care about, and we're going to get to know them based on their work ethic. We're going to get to be next to them. There's a bond that's formed in the trenches, I think was the slogan or the saying. We're going to get to work side by side with them, and we'll know if we like them or not, without needing to have any of the social awkwardness of what is making friends as an adult in the 2020s. We're going to get to meet all these people, and that's going to be great. And so, to take that back to the office hours side, and the life experience part, I get to be exposed to, how would this person manage a team, and how does this person manage an idea, and how does this third person go about solving a problem or communicating with others. And it's really, again, as somebody who's been professionally for the better part of my life within a company that I've seen grow up from nothing, that's a very narrow worldview. I know how we work. I don't know how everybody works. And I've worked for other companies. I worked for, in college, I worked at the Apple Store. I went to the Genius Bar. I worked at the Chicago Tribune for a short stint. And thank goodness I did, because my former boss at the Tribune introduced my wife and I. So that's a win. Made the whole stack of years in Chicago worth it.
Absolutely.
Worked in
Yes.
and I worked restaurant jobs. I've worked in a couple places, some big companies, some small companies, but you still, if you never leave your little nest and you never leave your little group that you've been talking to forever, then it limits your ability to grow, and it limits your ability to think differently about things. And it's that different perspective that then helps you have that creative solution and have fresher eyes when you approach a problem. You don't have the same old tired thinking. You're not cutting off the ends of the roast. Like we like to say that. Do you know about everybody knows about the roast?
Go ahead. Share
The
it.
story, the short version of the story is, girl asks her mom at Thanksgiving, okay, what's the next step as I'm getting the roast ready? She says, we'll cut the ends off the roast before we put it in the oven. The girl says to mom, why do we cut the ends off the roast? So I don't know. My mom always cuts the ends off the roast. So they get her grandma on the phone and they say, hey, grandma, how can we always cut the ends off the roast? Then
Oh my
grandma says, well,
goodness.
man, shucks, I don't know. My mom always cut the ends off the roast. And well, I mean, that's just what you do. We've always done it that way. We've always done it that way. And finally, they find great grandma, still alive, still around, call her up, and they say, okay, you have to solve this multi-generational mystery for us. Why are we cutting the ends off the roast? The great granddaughter says. And great grandma says, well, because the pan's too small, or my oven wouldn't fit the roast. So we had to cut it off. And it's an allegory for, there are
Oh.
so many situations in life,
Yes.
personally or in business, where we're doing the same thing because we've always done it that way. And if I don't get exposed, and if we don't get exposed as a people to a different way of thinking and a different way of approaching a problem, then we're going to keep cutting the ends off the roast, whether we know it or not. So I'm always trying to get a fresh look at the same problem.
I agree with you. And it's just from the standpoint of you're in Cincinnati, I'm in Atlanta, and we're having a conversation. And I can just go back to all of the different impacts that office hours has had in terms of my life, from the standpoint of um, Clyde Lopez Waterman taking time out of his busy schedule to come while I was sick and to move my setup into another room. To have a conversation with Mickey in the Philippines, or an actual conversation with Tony Mobley with Dr. Hasmat Gaijar in Cape Town, South Africa. How in the world can a old guy who just likes technology have the opportunity to talk to these people all over the world? Andy Carluccio, who's a part of Zoom, Lamel McMorris, who works for um, one of the major banking systems in the country, Dr. Messina Morris, who is at Morehouse, which is the only college in the United States right now that has a virtual campus. Yeah, I mean, Liberty White, who does training in other countries, and all of the different individuals who have been a part of this community, some who are not as visible as they used to be, but Dr. Chris Clark, I'm John Preto, I mean, uh, there's so many different people, Guy Cochran, go on and on and on and on. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this is, and yeah, I'm a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader for office hours. But the point that I want to make is, when you talk about being able to explore the world in which you live and operate, this is a way in which you can do it, and it's powerful. I mentioned about my health journey and how the office hours community, even in not being able to do conversation with Tony Mobley, and all the trials and tribulations that I was going through. Zach told me this evening. The person that's TDing the show, he told me this evening. He said he was praying for me in terms of everything that I was going through. This is a person that's in Australia. You know, this is a great opportunity. I really wanted to ask you about your piano playing, though. The reason why I wanted to ask you about it, because my parents, 'cause since we're both the oldest of seven, my parents wanted to give me lessons, and I took probably 3 or 4 lessons. Never couldn't sit still long enough to do it, but you were able to do it. So, um, can you just briefly just tell us a little bit about your piano playing? And the
Sure.
reason why I'm asking is because I didn't do it, but the three after me all became musicians
Really?
for churches. They were all church musicians at different churches. And so I missed that boat.
So the piano thing is kind of funny because most people start at 4 years old, 5 years old, and I got a call uh, from Pop Up, right? 81. Happy birthday again. Uh, and he was watching TV one night, and this commercial came on. Play piano in a flash with Scott the Piano Guy Houston. We'll send you this DVD and this piano chord chart for $19.99 plus shipping and handling. And if you need 2 easy payments, we can do that for you too. Like one of those kind of things with the numbers on the screen. And he called me up. Well, I can hear the commercial on in the background. He says, "Hey kid, you want to learn how to play the piano?" I said, "Sure." He says, "Okay, I'm buying this DVD." And he hangs up. That is the sum total of the conversation. So he gives me that DVD, and I watch the DVD, and I'm kind of following it. and I went to I went to like a month's worth of lessons. I also was very bored with the way that they were going to teach me. I probably would have gotten a lot better a lot faster had I gone to those lessons. But what the DVD was teaching you was not how to read, EGABDF, like all the every good boy does fine and FACE and all the. They weren't teaching you how to read sheet music. They were teaching you how to read chord charts, and that's uh, really what it is math. All they were doing was teaching you music theory. So they were saying, you want to play a major chord? Okay, start on your key, and then to play a major chord, you need a major third and a minor, or a minor third and a major third. And I said, or I'm sorry, a major third and a minor third. And they said, well, what's a major third? Well, that's 4 half steps. What's a half step? Every key is a half step. Okay, so a major third and minor. 1 C D D D D D D D bum 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 bum. Okay, that's a C chord. Now do a D chord, and I did that with math over and over and over again for. I don't think that I was. I don't think that I was very good for about 14 years. Maybe 10. No, I don't think I was very good until um probably 7. I was tolerable. I could start to read baby little bits of sheet music at 10 years in. And what the chord charts enabled you to do, though. Oh, I'm sorry, one more offshoot to the story. I learned all those basics from that guy. I picked up a couple more tips from the guy that was the piano teacher, Dave Rabel. Awesome piano teacher. He had lost a finger in an accident, so he was a 9-fingered piano teacher. He'd lost his pinky, and he was always like, "Well, I can do it with 9 fingers. Surely you can do it with 10." Like he would just stick. Like I said, I only went to a handful of lessons with him, but it stuck.
Right.
One of my best friends in the world has a master's in music. He's a music educator, and we were going to go down to a festival, a music festival one year. And so I went the night before to crash at his house. We're going to leave early in the morning. It's a 12-hour drive, and he's got this book there, and it's the real book. And I'm like, the real book? What is this? And I open it up. It's like, oh, it's chord charts. I know how to do chord charts. And I started dinking and dunking through it. And then he's like, well, you're missing the other part of the chord. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, well, you just played a C chord, but that's a C7. Like, you see this? And that little circle means it's diminished. And that's a C minor 7 flat 5. And I was like, oh, these are jazz chords. And I grew up listening to, I had a business in high school that was an iPod fixing business, right? And at the time, I bought all my music on iTunes. I bought so many bottles of Pepsi to get the little free code, because if you kind of tilted it just right, you could see if it said sorry or if it had random text. So I had, free songs from that promotion, and I just loved music, and I loved that I could walk around and listen to anything. And so I went to all my family members' houses who had big CD collections, and I'd camp out for hours or days, just importing all their CDs into my library. And there's no streaming at the time, right? But I had 40,000, 50,000 songs. That was a big deal, with an incredible
Right.
eclectic music taste. I didn't realize that it technically shouldn't have been doing that, because I didn't buy the CDs. My music teacher told me that. He had a great, Mr. Sunderman had a tremendous classical music collection, and like 200 CDs, classical CDs, all Deutsche Grammophon, tremendous quality records. And I took them to the media lab that had the Mac Pros with the double discs, and I had 6 Mac Pros going, and I did 200 CDs in an afternoon, because I was doing 14 at a time, just boom, boom, boom. And the business that I had, though, was I would fix people's iPods, because there was no Apple Store back in the day. I would fix people's iPods, because where else are you going to go? People knew that I did it, but I didn't charge any money. I said, okay, any of your music that's not DRM'd, and any of your music that didn't come from LimeWire, because I never did LimeWire, I never did Napster. I was against that, and I just didn't feel good about it. I said, I'm going to take that music. That was wrong too, but it felt better because I was doing something for the service. And I amassed all these songs. One of the things that I really took a liking to, and this is probably pop-up as well, is was all the old Sinatra songs. And you didn't realize at the time, like when I was a little kid, you didn't realize that Frank Sinatra was singing the Great American Songbook. he was singing jazz standards. He wasn't a jazz singer necessarily, but he was singing jazz standards. And so when I opened up the real book at Andrew's house and I saw all these jazz chords and I'm learning all these funky turnarounds and how to do stuff, this has unlocked this amazing world to me where now I know all these songs. Frank Sinatra sang these songs. Louis Armstrong sang these songs. Ella Fitzgerald sang these songs. I know all these songs. And then that was, at the time I was single and I was in outside sales. I was traveling 65,000 miles a year in the car, going all over the place. And then I would get home after sometimes weeks of being on the road. No pets, no girls. It's just me. And so what did I do? I sat there and, like I was learning a software program, I beat on the piano until I got good at it. And that's not a short version of that story, but that's how that goes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're down to the last question. We're going to have you come back. We we definitely got to get you to come back so that we can maybe hear a little bit of music.
Maybe.
Who knows? All right. The last question is, you're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
That's a great question. I think what the world needs to know more than anything is that whatever it is, it's possible. It might be easy, it might be hard, but if you really put your mind to it and you really want it, you can make it happen. There are so many amazing stories of success in life and love and family and business that if you really want it, you can get out there and do it. And you've just got to remember one thing that I learned driving around with my dad, listening to, books on tape when I was a little kid. One of the ones that I really took a liking to, and if you listen to it now, it's a little hokey, but I think the message was still there. He loved listening to Zig Ziglar, and Zig Ziglar did "See You at the Top" was kind of his paramount one, but he also did a lot of great sales trainings. He would always have, and he'd always close the segments with, "And I'll see you," and yes, I really mean you at the top. But
wow.
What he said, though, was you can get anything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. I'll say it again. You can get just about anything in life. You can get anything in life that you want if you would just help enough other people get what they want. And if you approach your everyday life with empathy and put yourself in the other person's shoes and you treat them the way that they'd like to be treated, not the way that you want to be treated, by the way, but you treat them the way they'd like you to treat them. If you're approaching situations with empathy and making sure that there's something in it for the other person, and there's that win-win, that mutual, you'd be amazed at the friends that you have.
Wow. Thank you, CJ. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio visual professionals who meet daily in Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. Thank you, Mimo Live. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new and great conversations on Conversation with Tony Mobley. We want to thank everyone for the 100 plus episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And when you have time, we ask that you go back and look at some of those past conversations. We think you will find something that you like and hopefully is helpful to you. We want to say thank you to CJ Covell for being a part of our conversation today, for doing the work you do, and for being the person who you are. Next week, we will not have Conversation with Tony Mobley. October 30th, there will be no Conversation with Tony Mobley. However, we will return on November 6th, and we will have artist designer Mr. Dan Flores. That's right, Mr. Dan Flores will be with us on November 6th. So we ask that you take care. God bless. We'll see you soon. Bye.